All right, so I want to talk to you guys about techniques for throwing a spinnerbait. As you well know, a spinnerbait is one of my favorites. Now, especially in low light situations, I love throwing a spinnerbait into pads and reeds and weeds. And, I often hear people say, oh, it's a pain in the butt. You try to drag your bait through the weeds and you only get a few feet out of it, and then you got to haul it in and clean it off. It's got 6 pounds of vegetation on it. That's okay. One of the things you need to understand if you're new to this is you don't need 100-foot retrieve to catch a fish. All you're looking for is a 2 or 3 second window that lure is moving the way that it's supposed to be, that fish sees it and either hunts it down, or you elicit a reaction strike by bringing it by his face. And so what happens is, you'll cast into those weeds, and all you need is to find a hole, drop it in a hole so you can get your retrieve going. And even if that retrieve only lasts 4, 5, 6 feet, 2, 3, 4 seconds, whatever, that's the time that you need for that fish to see it and to react. So don't be discouraged if you're cleaning off your lure every time it comes in, because it's not the whole cast you're looking to complete. It's not like you're in open water throwing a crankbait. You are purposely throwing in the weeds because bass are vicious predators who sit and conceal and cover themselves and wait to ambush something. So keeping that in mind, you want to throw them something in a location where they might be doing that. Where might they be seeking cover and concealment and waiting to ambush their prey? In the pads, in the grass. So I'm going to show you the best I can how to do that and hopefully get some fish while we do that. All right? Sparsely populated pads, sometimes it's pretty easy to pull a spinnerbait through, a good distance. But when the pads are thicker and the water's shallower and there's not as much room to move, you may only get a couple feet. So what I do is or not even, and so what I do is I look for a hole in the vegetation to throw it in. I drop that spinnerbait in the hole where I can get a clean start to my retrieve. And even though I'm looking at a hole this big, I'm understanding that that's all the time I'm looking for. And if there's a fish in that hole or in the weeds around that hole, he's going to react and eat that spinnerbait. So I'm looking for holes to throw in so I can get the retrieve started, and then once the fish doesn't hit and I'm in the weeds and it hangs up, okay, the cast's over, reel it in, clean off 2 pounds of weeds, do it again. I'm going to try to show you on the computer screen on the video the holes I'm shooting at so you understand what I'm talking about if you're new to this. When you're throwing a spinnerbait into pads and reeds and grass like this, you spend an awful lot of time cleaning your bait off. but you also quite frequently clean a fatso off your bait. So it's worth it. A good example is right here. But now that hole in the reeds and the vegetation is only about 4 feet wide. So I'm not expecting to get a full retrieve out of it. All I want to do is get it in that hole, get the retrieve going, and hopefully hit something in that hole or soon after I then enter the weeds. Now over here to my side, I've got a nice big hole in the vegetation. So I'm going to throw it in, I'm going to drop it right in there, and I'm going to slowly pull it through there. And if I don't hit one in that hole, I'm hoping I get somebody's attention while it's going through that hole, and then they follow it into the weeds, or they wait for it in the weeds and grab it. So I'm going to drop it right in there, pull it real slow. Alright, now I'm out of the hole and I'm in the weeds. And I came up empty. But I'm going to continue to do that. That's how you catch big ones in the weeds with a spinnerbait. Don't worry about getting a long retrieve. You only need a few seconds. Alright, there's a pile of reeds right there. Dump it in the hole. And there we go. Alright, that was perfect. I dumped it right in the hole. And whether this guy was in that hole or in the weeds, as soon as the spinnerbait crossed the hole and went into the weeds, this guy just blasted it. Little guy. Love you, man. Now see right there, that was right here on this cast, that was an unusually long retrieve. I just had a retrieve through the weeds, oh gosh, at least 50 feet before it hung up. You know, so the longer you can have it running through the weeds, great. But you don't need that. So don't get discouraged if you're only getting 2, 3, 4 feet out of a cast. You keep doing that, I'm telling you, you're gonna put fish in the boat. You know, and this isn't just a technique for spinnerbaits. I do this a lot with topwater baits too. I'll throw them into a hole this big because I think there's a fish there, and knowing I'm going to get those treble hooks gnarled up in a second, but I just want to get it across that little hole to see if it gets hit. There's a good fish. That's a pig. That's an oinker. Yeah. That is an oinker, yeah. Oh, she's a beauty. Spinnerbait down in the pads. That there is a fat Larry. All right, folks, well, that's it. That's a wrap. We stayed out a long time. We rode out the rain. We did a lot last night. Didn't catch a lot of fish, but we caught one dunk. Yes, sir. That is a good looking fish right there. And that, my friends, is bona fide donkey. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome stuff. Well, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. As always, I learned something. I learn something every time I go out. So, hey, we'll see you next time on Chicken Thigh Fishing. And until then, stay fishing, my friends.